So I think the development of local community media is now getting a much closer attention than it did before. So I think that's a positive element in the evolution of journalism.
You mentioned a few moments ago that journalism is always changing. Do you think that a form of print journalism would die, the form that we have right now in newspaper? Do you think it'll die forever?
No. There'll always be a need and an element of the need for paper. When movies started, okay, back in the early part of the 20th century, people said that newspapers were dead, okay? We still have them, okay? When radio came along, people said that the movies were dead because now they didn't have to go out, okay? Then television came along and said radio's dead, okay? Then cable came along and said the broadcasting is dead. Then the internet came along and they're saying that, oh, no one watches TV anymore. The fact of the matter is they may not watch a big TV set that weighs 75 pounds, but they might be watching TV programming on their computer screen. So it's changing, and it's changing the way people consume the media. Will it kill it? No. Will you see more digital versions? Will people read the New York Times? Yes, but they might read it on their Kindle. Okay? So it's not going to kill the media, but it is going to force it to transform. And yes, you'll have fewer and fewer trees dying as media goes along, but you'll have more and more journalism on different levels.
Other professors have mentioned that that people focus more on the way they deliver the news instead of the essence of the news. Instead of saying, this is what's important, but they care more about the lights and this and this and that, instead of, what's really true about the news. Do you agree with that, or do you?
That's been a constant. It's always been a constant. If you go back and look at the old newsreels of the 1930s and 40s, and historians say that's where news was born and was reported. But if you actually go back and look at them, they were about movie stars, they were about radio stars, they were about scandals. Okay, they were about European kings and queens just as much as they were about like the war in Europe. So that type of infotainment has always been there. It's just a little bit more colorful. There's a lot more of it, and a lot more people have access to it. You have to keep in mind that there's a certain literacy that young people in the United States especially have now that prior generations didn't have. Access to technology, to smartphones that update your Facebook page, or that you can access Yahoo News, is as common to your generation, okay, as Newsweek magazine was to me. Okay, or listening to the radio. I still listen to the radio. Okay, but I do have a Facebook page too. I think that I forgot the essence of your question, but I think that the technology has changed the way we consume journalism. Okay, but there's always going to want to be a need for someone to read about what's happening in the war in Afghanistan, as well as maybe find out an epitaph about a movie star who passed away this past week. So there's always going to be demand for both, but there's just a lot more news out there, so it's more obvious.
So you're saying that it's always been like this. People have always been interested in celebrities and the way we do today, but also about what's going on in other countries.
Right.
But
the technological, that's what I was talking about, the technological literacy that your generation has blows anything away that my generation had or generations before that, because you have access to the world at your fingertips, whereas we only had a half hour of news on the networks in the afternoon, in the evening. So I think that the technological literacy that the technology is bringing is going to allow for a better informed and well-rounded younger generation than we've seen ever.
People say that there's a dumbing down, continuing what I was saying before about news and the way it's being reported. People don't care much about it. Do you think it's true? Do you think technology is involved in this?
There's a certain impression of that because, again, there are so many outlets. There used to only be 3 television networks, NBC, CBS, and ABC. And those are the only 3 places you could go to get really international news on television. Mm-hmm. And as a result, there was a very limited area of content that they put there. Now you have many networks and you have many sources of news that you can go to, so they don't have to be so general. So the old network news was very stodgy and very cold and stuffy with old men in suits sitting there, okay? Now you've got Fox News, you've got Reuters, you've got Yahoo News, you've got shows like Entertainment Tonight. And so what you're seeing is a cutting up of the pie into smaller slices. So people are going to the flavor they like or they want to consume. So there's a lot more choice. So what I always say is just like you shouldn't only eat at McDonald's, okay? Nothing but 3 meals a day from McDonald's. It's okay to go there once in a while, but have some fruits and vegetables as well, okay? And get a balanced diet. So if you like Fox News, that's fine. Watch a little CNN as well. Or if you like reading Us Weekly, well, pick up Time Magazine once in a while or read it on the web because they're both available on the web. So you get a balanced diet. So you're a healthier intellectual person eating a balanced diet of journalism from the various sources. So is there a dumbing down in some areas? Sure, but is there a tightening of information in some areas, like in news about finance, okay, and what's going on in the markets? In-depth coverage like that was never available before. So it's smartening it up in some areas and dumbing it down in others.
Going back to your experience,